The mistake is often made that Robert is King Crimson. King Crimson was born on January the 13th, 1969, at the Fulham Palace Cafe. So King Crimson is 56 years old.
Robert Fripp is widely regarded as one of the greatest guitarists of the 20th century, yet he defied nearly every stereotype associated with rock stardom. He didn't have wild hair or dark sunglasses, steered clear of scandal, and never courted the public's affection. In fact, he actively avoided the spotlight, shunning fame and adoration, and precisely because of that, he became an icon. As the soul of King Crimson, Fripp led one of progressive rock's most daring and ever-evolving bands, crafting each album as a completely new sonic universe. While contemporaries like Pink Floyd and Genesis rose to mainstream popularity, King Crimson remained an elusive, ever-shifting force, extreme, mysterious, and largely invisible to the masses. So how did a quiet, distant man who refused to promote himself become the intellectual cornerstone of an entire genre? Why did giants like David Bowie, Brian Eno, and Peter Gabriel seek him out as a kind of original musical mind? The answer lies in Fripp's unique existence. He didn't live to be famous. He lived to discover sounds the world had never heard. Born on May 16, 1946, in Wimborne Minster, Dorset, England, Robert Fripp was raised in a strictly working-class household. His father, Arthur, was a punctual, diligent grocer, while his mother, Edith, was a stern, practical woman who didn't believe in expressing weakness. The Fripp household had no musical legacy, no creative leanings, only duty, discipline, and silence. But from a young age, Robert stood apart. He learned to read at 4, played chess at 6, and would spend long hours lost in silent contemplation about time, solitude, and the nature of existence. At school, he was bright but reserved, with few friends. Teachers described him as too smart to teach and too quiet to discipline. At 11, he discovered his sister's forgotten guitar in a corner of the house. From the moment he held it, he knew it was his voice, a way to express what couldn't be said in words. As a teenager, Fripp had no social circle, no interest in sports or parties. Instead, he buried himself in guitar practice, not in the conventional sense, but as a means to explore sound as a philosophical idea. He read Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, and Gurdjieff, using music to investigate abstract concepts like identity and space. Even then, he didn't aspire to perform on stage. He later said, "I didn't want to stand in front of a crowd. I wanted to find how a single note could reach where words could not." At 15, he considered becoming an accountant, something his family approved of, but eventually abandoned the plan. Not out of rebellion, but because he realized he couldn't live without chasing sound. This decision shocked his parents, who believed music was a frivolous distraction. Around this time, Fripp developed a strict personal regimen. He imposed structure on every part of his day: practice, study, journaling, meditation. He didn't smoke, drink, or party. He rose early and practiced guitar in silence, a ritual he maintained for decades. "I don't see myself as a guitar player. I'm someone searching for sound, and the guitar is just the tool," he once told his students. His youth was not marked by tragedy, but by a profound inner solitude, a mind at odds with the society around him. In a world that rewarded noise and conformity, Fripp chose silence, and from it, created a kind of music no one had ever heard before. At 20, instead of gigging in pubs or joining cover bands like most aspiring musicians, Fripp immersed himself in theory, philosophy, and structured experimentation. In 1967, he joined a strange little group called Giles and Fripp, a fusion of pop, jazz, and classical music. The band wasn't commercially successful, but it was a crucial laboratory for Fripp's ideas, music not as entertainment, but as a living, thinking structure. In 1968, he co-founded King Crimson, not as a band in the traditional sense, but as an artistic experiment. Fripp never sang and rarely spoke on stage, but he directed everything: arrangements, tone, philosophy, even album artwork. The band was designed to evolve constantly, regardless of public taste. Their 1969 debut, In the Court of the Crimson King, was an artistic explosion: lush Mellotron soundscapes, angular guitars, haunting lyrics, and apocalyptic imagery. Critics hailed it as a groundbreaking masterpiece. Pete Townsend called it the first true progressive rock album. But Fripp wasn't satisfied. Within months, key members left due to creative tension. Others couldn't cope with Fripp's relentless standards. But to Fripp, it didn't matter. The music, not the members, was meant to endure. I didn't form a band to maintain it. I formed a band to discover what no one had heard before, he said. Over the next 5 years, King Crimson released genre-defying albums like Lark's Tongues in Aspic, Starless and Bible Black, and Red, each radically different and uncompromising in its vision. Stability was never the goal. Fripp was chasing something deeper, a music that could alter consciousness, something both sacred and chaotic. While other prog rock bands achieved commercial success in the early 70s, Fripp chose a different path. To him, success wasn't about sales or fame, it was about the spiritual and psychological depth of music. After releasing 3 albums in 2 years, he abruptly disbanded King Crimson in 1974. "We were no longer creating rituals, we were selling tickets," he said. Disillusioned with the music industry, Fripp retreated from the stage and began studying under J.G. Bennett, a British mystic and teacher of Gurdjieff's spiritual system. After stepping away from music, Robert Fripp immersed himself in meditation courses, manual labor, and a monk-like lifestyle. He saw it as a necessary cleansing of the artist's mind, a way to return to music untainted by ego. And when he returned, Fripp didn't simply resurrect King Crimson. Instead, he threw himself into a series of boundary-breaking projects that defied every expectation. In 1977, he played on David Bowie's Heroes album, delivering a haunting, distorted, and long-sustained guitar sound that seemed to echo from another dimension. It was Fripp's contribution that gave the title track its surreal, otherworldly character. Bowie saw Fripp not just as a guitarist, but as someone capable of summoning sound from beyond reality. That same year, Fripp collaborated with Brian Eno, releasing No Pussyfooting and later Evening Star, 2 pioneering ambient records that used tape loops and primitive electronics to create soundscapes without melody or rhythm, just evolving sonic layers opening into meditative space. Fripp also worked with Peter Gabriel on his debut solo album, collaborated with Daryl Hall, Blondie, Talking Heads, and began teaching his philosophy of music as a spiritual discipline in workshops around the world. In 1981, he revived King Crimson, not as a nostalgic reboot, but as something entirely new. With a fresh lineup and sound, they released Discipline, an album that fused post-punk sharpness, minimalist structures, and meditative undertones. While many veteran bands were recycling old formulas, Fripp was evolving again. "I don't want to become the past of myself. I want the music to still be happening, not remembered," he said. At every stage, he dismantled what he had built, not out of disdain, but because stagnation was the enemy. For Fripp, music wasn't a career, it was a sacred, transformative ritual. Yet such devotion came at a cost. Fripp was not just unpredictable, he was famously difficult to work with. To him, music was a sacred act, and anyone who approached it casually was operating on an entirely different level of consciousness. Over 5 decades, King Crimson saw more lineup changes than almost any other major band. Fripp deliberately avoided stability, believing it led to creative death, but this also sparked countless personal conflicts. Legendary drummer Bill Bruford once said, "Fripp is a creative genius, but he demands total control, from every drumbeat to how you stand on stage." Many musicians left Crimson not because of the music, but because of the intense psychological pressure. Even longtime collaborators like Adrian Belew were not immune. In 2013, when Fripp briefly retired from the music industry, he cited a loss of faith in the relationship between artist and system. But when he returned and reformed King Crimson again, Belew was notably absent, without explanation. Fripp simply stated, "Emotion is not the measure of artistic decisions." His battles weren't limited to bandmates. He waged a long public war against the record industry, accusing labels like EG Records of exploiting King Crimson's catalog and reissuing material without consent. He responded by suing, publishing open letters, and denouncing the industry as structurally exploitative and ethically bankrupt. In the mid-1990s, Fripp founded his own label, Discipline Global Mobile, DGM, based on principles of transparency, fair profit sharing, and artist rights. DGM became a model for independent musicians. But even later in life, Fripp remained unpredictable. During the COVID-19 pandemic, he surprised the world by appearing in a quirky YouTube series called Sunday Lunch, playing guitar in his kitchen while his wife, singer and actress Toya Wilcox, danced in flamboyant outfits and sang rock classics. The contrast between the stoic Fripp and Toya's wild energy stunned fans. Some believed he had tarnished his legacy. Others saw it as a rare moment of joyful self-expression. Fripp's response was simple: If an artist can't laugh at himself, he's worshipping his ego, not the music. He didn't explain. He didn't apologize. Because more than anyone, Robert Fripp understood that the price of absolute freedom is being misunderstood your whole life. Despite his ascetic public image, Fripp's personal life wasn't entirely solitary. Since 1986, he has been married to Toya Wilcox, a fiery, free-spirited punk icon who seemed his polar opposite. He was quiet, measured, and deeply philosophical. She was bold, outspoken, and radiantly theatrical. But they shared one crucial value: absolute respect for individual freedom. "Toya doesn't need me to fully understand her," Fripp once said. "She needs me to allow her to be herself, and vice versa." The couple lived in a secluded house in Worcestershire, surrounded by books, instruments, and light. No children, no scandals, no red carpets. While Fripp pursued esoteric musical experiments, Toya continued acting, painting, writing, and performing. In 2020, when the pandemic shut down the world, Toya suggested a playful idea: make YouTube videos together in their kitchen. At first, Fripp resisted. Then he agreed, not for fame, but for her. In the Sunday Lunch series, he played complex guitar riffs while Toya danced around him in outrageous costumes, singing Metallica or Billy Idol songs. The videos went viral. Viewers were stunned. Was this the same austere Robert Fripp from King Crimson? He didn't care. It was his way of expressing love, not through words or grand gestures, but by giving his partner the space to live fully. Fripp's life wasn't a gentle love song. It was a counterpoint, between stillness and motion, between introspection and chaos, between meditative silence and sudden laughter from the kitchen. And perhaps only in that quiet, deeply private world could his music finally rest. Legacy and influence. Robert Fripp never set out to become a legend. But by refusing to become an icon, he became the icon of refusal itself. In an industry obsessed with sales, celebrity, and repetition, Fripp left behind a legacy of radical creative independence. He reshaped the musical possibilities of rock, pioneering a philosophy no one else could replicate. His greatest impact was on progressive rock, but his reach extended far beyond. King Crimson was not just a band, it was a constantly shifting laboratory where jazz, classical, ambient, noise, and sacred music collided. Each album was a universe unto itself. Without King Crimson, it's hard to imagine bands like Tool, Dream Theater, Porcupine Tree, or even Radiohead. Steven Wilson, the creative force behind Porcupine Tree, once said, "King Crimson is the unfinished map of progressive rock, and Fripp is the one who drew every line with his own hands." But Fripp's influence went far beyond sound. He left behind an ideology that the true artist isn't someone who pleases the market, but someone who searches for truth through every note. Through his label, Discipline Global Mobile, DGM, Fripp championed transparency in earnings, defended artistic rights, and fought against the exploitation of creativity for profit. In countless writings and lectures, he emphasized that music is a moral act. If it's not honest, it dies before it's ever heard. Another major part of his legacy was his guitar craft school, founded in 1985. It wasn't just about technique. It was a spiritual journey. Students were trained in posture, breathing, silence, and the art of listening to sound as a living, conscious being. Many who attended later called it a meditation school through music. Fripp also helped shape modern ambient music, particularly through his groundbreaking collaborations with Brian Eno on albums like No Pussyfooting and Evening Star. His Frippertronics technique, using tape loops to create dense, evolving soundscapes, influenced everyone from Aphex Twin to Nine Inch Nails. And yet, perhaps Fripp's greatest legacy isn't found in any album or recording. It lies in the idea that an artist can live entirely outside of the system simply by staying true to their path. No ad campaigns. No attention-grabbing gimmicks. Just a guitar, an independent mind, and the courage to say no. A single honest note can outlast a fake career that spans 40 years, he once wrote. And maybe, because he never tried to become someone else, Robert Fripp became what so few artists ever truly become, himself. Present life. Robert Fripp will turn 79 in 2025. But don't picture an aging legend coasting on nostalgia. He still wakes up at 6 a.m., practices guitar, meditates, and writes in his leather-bound notebook. To Fripp, age isn't an end, it's just another stage in the creative journey. He and his wife, Toya Wilcox, still live in their old stone house in Worcestershire, where moss creeps along the walls and the only sound most mornings is the soft hum of guitar strings. They don't host parties. They don't chase fame. But they work every day, as if still in their prime. After announcing his withdrawal from the music industry in 2012, many assumed Fripp had retired. But in 2013, he returned, reformed King Crimson with a new lineup, not to follow the times, but to challenge them. They released Radical Action to unseat the hold of Monkey Mind, Meltdown, Live in Mexico City, and delivered live performances that felt like sacred rituals. No flashy lights. No LED screens. No choreography. Just raw, unfiltered sound. And then, in one of the most unexpected twists of his life, Fripp became internet famous, as a YouTuber. Since 2020, he and Toya have been starring in the Sunday Lunch video series. Fripp in a sharp suit, playing heavy metal riffs from Enter Sandman to Chop Suey, while Toya dances wildly, dons absurd costumes, sings rock classics, and sometimes cracks eggs on his head. The videos went viral. Millions watched. Critics scratched their heads. Longtime fans were divided. But Fripp remained unfazed. "I don't perform to protect an image," he said. "I live. And living can look strange to those who are already dead inside." In 2024, the couple took their Sunday Lunch rock party on tour across the UK, bringing a mix of serious musicianship and quirky domestic chaos to small theaters. Meanwhile, Fripp continues to release new ambient recordings and publishes essays on musical philosophy through DGM Live, a site he personally manages, overseeing everything from publishing rights to content curation. At nearly 80, Robert Fripp has nothing left to prove. There's no comeback, because he never really left. He simply stepped into a different dimension, one where the guitar still rings each morning, untouched by time, untouched by trend, untouched by industry noise. And in a strange, poetic irony, the man who spent his entire life avoiding the spotlight has become one of the most relatable legends the internet has ever known. Robert Fripp never screamed to be noticed. He didn't chase fame or try to be remembered, yet he became unforgettable. Not because of record sales or headlines, but because he is living proof that you can reject everything the industry demands and still endure, proudly unbent. Fripp never tried to become a monument. He just tried to stay honest, to every note, every page in his notebook, every moment he lived. And through that unwavering honesty, he left a mark, not on the charts, but on the creative minds of generations of artists. Today, Fripp doesn't deliver grand declarations or stage lavish farewell tours. He simply wakes up, plays guitar with his wonderfully eccentric wife in their kitchen, and continues exploring the infinite world of sound. Because for Robert Fripp, greatness doesn't live in the spotlight. It lives in the silence between two notes, the space only the brave have the patience to hear. Have you ever listened to King Crimson? What do you think when you see someone like Fripp, nearly 80, still playing Metallica riffs in his kitchen? Share your thoughts, or your favorite Fripp track, in the comments below. And if you love stories about artists as unusual as this, don't forget to subscribe. The next journey will be even stranger than you expect.